11:42 August 3rd 2017. This is my latest range card. Quite a few improvements. First of all, I am shooting only on 24 magnification with that scope of mine, 6-24 by 50. I have set it on 24 and I'm using 24 only. The other thing is that I have zeroed the rifle. How can I put it? If you zero the rifle here at 30 yards, 31 yards, which is where I zero my rifle, you have only, depending on the scope, 5 to maybe 7 mil dots to have for holdover. If you want to shoot at longer distances, you'll have to dial down the magnification from say 24 to maybe 20, maybe 16, maybe 10, because otherwise you run out of mil dots. But if instead of zeroing the rifle here, if you zero your rifle here, that is 7 mil dots on my scope higher than this place, you will be enjoying a total of 14, of course depending on the scope, or maybe 10 mil dots to have as holdover, and this allows you to not to be forced to dial down the magnification at longer distances. So this is what I did. And how you do that is that you first tell Chairgun or 3Aug that I'm zeroing my rifle here at 31 yards, and then look at the 7th mil dot down here. In this case it was 84 yards. So I then told 3Aug that I have dialed I have zeroed my rifle at 84 yards without really having to touch the rifle or the scope. And now 3Aug assumes that I have zeroed my rifle at 30 yards, but on this point. In other words, zeroing your rifle at 31 yards how can I put it? In other words, telling 3Aug or Chairgun that you have zeroed your rifle at 84 yards, which is this point, is equivalent to having zeroed your rifle at 31 yards on this dot. So, taking advantage of that trick, I now am allowed to have a total of 14 mil dots of holdover at 24 mag, which is great because you can see better. The value of each mil dot is much less, and there is much more room for error. In other words, at 10 mag, the value of each mil dot is, let's say, 10 centimeters, for example, whereas at 24 mag, the value of each mil dot is, for example, 2.5 centimeters. This allows you to have a better, a bigger room for error, and also, of course, taking advantage of the 24 mag, you can see much better. Now here, in this newer, latest version of my range card, I have included or added also 15 degrees and 90 degrees. And again, as before, at 11 yards, which is 10 meters, and mind you, I opted for yards because if I had to convert yards to meters, there would be an ever so slightly small rounding error. I didn't really want that in my calculations, so I just use yards. Doesn't make any difference for me and my range finder also has yards. So at 11 yards, regardless of the angle of shooting, I'm gonna have to have a 1 centimeter holdover. That is, I'm gonna have to aim 1 centimeter higher than the target. At 22 to 33 yards, which is basically 20 to 30 meters, this is my hold under. At 0, 15, and 30 degrees, I don't have to have any hold unders. I can just aim and shoot. And at 45, 60, 75, and 90 degrees, I'm going to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, that is, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4 centimeters, that is, of hold under. So these two parts are in centimeters. The rest is in mil dots. Pretty straightforward. I have, like, for example, if I'm shooting at 45 degrees at 80 yards, I'm going to have a 2.5 mil dots of holdover, and that's that. And this allows me to stretch my let's say, field of view, not in the sense that is used in scopes, but this allows me to stretch my field of view, or I don't know, the distance that I can look at through my scope at 24 mag to somewhere in the vicinity of 125 yards, maybe even more, at angled shots. And at this long distance, I don't have to dial down my magnification because I'm taking advantage of this trick. Otherwise, at 125 yards, I'd have to dial down the magnification from 24 to something around maybe 16, maybe 15, something like that. I don't want that. I'm very, very happy with this new setup, new range card, and I have totally now immigrated from chair gun to Strelok. There was a long while where I was on the fence and I kept switching back and forth, but now I have totally immigrated to Strelok. Much better app, really. And I think, I feel, or I can see that the algorithm that Strelok uses to calculate the holdovers and hold unders and stuff is it seems to me as though it's a more advanced, much better algorithm than that of chair gun. So to wrap up, again, instead of zeroing your rifle here, zero your rifle here, at whatever distance you usually zero your rifle. That is 31 yards for me. And in order to zero your rifle here rather than here, all you gotta do is to look at your app or software, Chairgun or Strelok, and find out what distance is this, which is 84 yards in my case, and simply tell Strelok or Chairgun that you have zeroed your rifle here and at 31 yards or whatever distance you usually zero your rifle. And this would be equivalent to telling your app, Strelok or Chairgun, that you have zeroed your rifle here at 34 yards. I think I made a mistake. So let me recap. Zeroing your rifle at the usual distance on this spot would be equivalent to zeroing your rifle. No, I guess I messed it up. Give me a second. If you zero your rifle on, now I'm really confused. Give me a second here. You want to zero your rifle at your usual distance on this spot. This is what you want to do. In order to do this, instead of in order to do this, you can simply zero your rifle here on this spot at the usual distance, and then simply tell the app or the software, Sterlock or Chairgun, that you have zeroed your rifle at 84 yards, which is the spot that you derive or get or look up or find by looking at your app and seeing which spot, which distance this is. Yeah, I know I was not able to tell very clearly what you have to do, so just allow me to do it again one last time. I want to have more meal dots to have as holdover. So I want to zero my rifle at the usual distance, but on this spot rather than right at the crosshairs. Now, in order to zero my rifle at the usual distance, but on this spot and not on the usual crosshairs, all I have to do is, after zeroing my rifle on this spot at the crosshairs at the usual distance, go to the app or to the software, Chairgun and Sterlock, and find out what distance this is. In my case, 84 yards. And then, without having to even touch the scope or the rifle, all you gotta do is to tell the app, the software, Sterlock or Chairgun, that you have, let me call it 84 yards, that you have zeroed your rifle not at the usual distance, but at 84 yards, or whatever it is that you can look up in your app after zeroing your rifle. And by doing so, this would be equivalent to having actually gone back to 84 yards and having actually zeroed your rifle on this spot at 84 yards. You don't really have to do that. You don't have to bother. You just tell the app that you have zeroed your rifle at 84 yards, or at the distance that this that the app tells you about this spot. And by doing so, you're allowed to have a total of 10 or maybe 14, in my case, meal dots of holdover. And this, in turn, allows you to not to have to dial down your magnification at longer distances and enjoy the benefits of higher magnification and much less value for the meal dots. By doing so, I'm shooting A4 papers, a paper just like this one, at 125 yards, 10 out of 10. It's crazy. You just put something at 125 yards, a big target like this paper, and shoot it one after another. 10 shots, 10 hits. This is great, and I'm not a very good shot, really. It's all ballistics. So it's key, of course, to apparently to chronograph your rifle, and more importantly, to find out the exact ballistic coefficient of your pellet, not just by looking it up on the web, but by actually going back to a long distance, something like 125 yards in the case of my rifle and my pellet, and measuring the drop, and then putting that data into Chairgun and Sterlock and calculate a new ballistic coefficient. It was interesting, my Sniper Magnum 18 grain pellets, which were supposed to have a ballistic